Alright, so let's start this to do card. I'm going to delete this div because what I'm going to do is going to put everything within a container. We're going to, leverage Mantine containers for that. And then the first thing that I want to do is, like the name implies, I want to use a card, right? Mantine has a component specifically for cards. So if I go to their documentation, I already have it open. A card kind of looks like this, right? It looks like something that's a little bit popped up on the screen. It has like a nice little, border radius, right? It has a little section. We're not using images, so this piece is not going to be here, but you can see it's simple as using a card component and applying a little bit of shadow, because you can see that there's a little bit of a shadow behind it, right? It makes it look like it's a little bit elevated, and we could just define little properties for that specific component to make it look a little bit better. And you can even see that it even has one called with border, because you want a border with it, right? And if you want to define sections, like in this case, it has a section specifically for image, you could, right? So this looks pretty great, and I'm actually gonna steal it for what I need to for the to-do card, right? It's gonna be something similar. We're gonna actually even steal a little bit of this. I think this is called a badge, right? This badge is gonna show whether our to-do is gonna be finished or not. If it is finished, then we'll change the color. We'll mark it as green, and then we'll also add a couple of buttons to show that you have the opportunity to either delete, update, or mark it as complete. So yeah, this is all perfect. Let's do this and let's get started. So we already created the container. Now let's actually import the card component, right, from Mantine Cord, and then open that up, right? And then let's start defining some properties. So I don't want too much of a shadow, so I'm gonna mark the shadow as small, and then P, I believe, stands for padding. So I'm gonna set that to LG for large. Radius, I'm gonna set that to medium, and then I do want a border, so I'm gonna put with border. So very similar to this, actually probably exactly right. So shadow small, P is equal to large, then radius is gonna be medium, and then with border, because I want a border. So cool. And let me see, if I go here, component props, you'll see some of the props that it comes with: radius, shadow, and with border. So the documentation for this is actually pretty great. So if you see anything that you need, you just go in, and it's sectioned off pretty great. All right, cool. So let's start putting what we should see within the card, right? So the first thing that I want to put is a text. I want to put a text on, the to-do title. And first, I already messed up, right? I want to take in a prop, right? And I want the prop to be, or I'm gonna call this props, but the specific props is gonna be the task that the user passes in. So what this is gonna allow me to do is, when a user passes in a prop to this to-do card, I'm gonna take that prop and I'm going to show that onto the card. So in this case, I expect to receive a prop of the to-do. So I'm going to take the to-do's title, I'm going to take the to-do's time, and I'm going to display that, right? I'm going to take all those attributes of the to-do and show it back to the user. So the first thing will be the text, right? I'm going to create a text, or Mantine has a text component, which will allow us to show in this case, the to-do title, once we receive the to-do prop from the initial page, which in this case will be the to-do page. So let's do text. Let's import that. I believe this is also, text is also from the Mantine core, so I do text. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it some weights, because it's going to be the first thing on the card. So I'm going to give it a weight of 500. It's going to make it a little bit more bold. And then the style, right? I want to give it some style of, I'm going to give it text decoration, right? So when the user finishes a task, I want to run a line through it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply some text decoration, and based on the progress, right? Because the to do has a progress attribute, and that's either gonna be true or false. Now, if it's true, that means that the to do is done. So I can run a line through the title. But if it's false, then I'll just leave it as a regular text. So uh, let's do that. So the text decoration, right? Um, we're gonna do props dot to do dot progress, because what I expect is I expect to receive a prop of called to do, and within that to do I expect to be able to retrieve the progress attribute. And if it is true, right, we're going to use a little conditional. If it is true, and then it should do text decoration line through, a little CSS for you. And if it is false, then the second attribute will be just empty string, meaning that there is going to be no text decoration. And then we'll close out that. Oops, close that out. And let's put on a new line because it's getting a little bit too long. So weight is going to be 500. The style got a little bit of logic based on whether the user is done or not. And within the text, it's just going to be props dot to do dot title. That's just simply going to be the name of the to do, right? So we have the first text in the bag. The second piece that we want to put is the date that it was created, right? So we're gonna do, I'm actually gonna put it in its own container, but we're gonna do another text, right? And then we're gonna bring that down. And honestly, we're just gonna copy the same logic here, because if the user is done, we want to cross out the date. But if they're not done, then we'll leave it blank. And then I'll also make this weight of 500. And just bring that to the side. And cool. Now, inside of the text, it's simply going to be props dot to do dot created at, right? Because that's one of the attributes that it's do, that is passed back from the API. When the to do was created, it receives a attribute called created at, which lets us know when the to do was created. So when the user is done, we can cross that out because now it doesn't even matter. It's done. But another cool thing, and I'm actually going to show us using the moment library when I actually display the to do card, and it'll make more sense on why we use a JS library called moment for that, because by default the date that's being returned from my API is wonky looking. So just to make it more consumable to the user, we're going to use a parser to convert it into a date that the user understands more, but I'll save that for later. So another thing that we're going to use or take from this is the badge. This badge is going to let us know, or let the user know, when it's completed or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little space under here, and I'm going to create a badge. And the badge is simply another tag from another component from Mantine, and I believe it's imported. Yeah, right here, badge. And we're going to open that up. And the first thing I want to do, bring that a little bit down, is define a color, right? Like I said, we can see that it's red here, but it could be red when it's not completed and then green when it is completed. So what we're going to do is write some logic. Right here, we're going to do props dot to do dot progress. Whoops. And if it is true, right, this is conditional, right? If it is true, then we're going to make it green. And if it is false, then we'll make it pink, right? It's going to look like a little reddish pinkish, right? And if I go back to this badge, or if I go to the specific badge component page, you'll see, let me see, This is like a badge right here. This is red. I believe this is pink, as you can see. And we're gonna use the variant of light because we want it to be filled out lightly. Because when it's filled, it's a little bit too dark, and then outline, not really. Dots is no bueno. So we're gonna do light because I like how that looks. So let's do on the second line variant, and we're gonna make that light, and then save that. Now within the badge, I want to actually run a conditional check as well to show what we want to show to the user, whether it's complete or incomplete. So within, between these tags of badge, I want to do another conditional check. So we're gonna do props dot to do dot progress, and if it is true, then we can let the user know that it's complete. But if it is false, it is not complete, then we'll let the user know that it's incomplete. And cool. Now we have the logic for the badge. If it is complete, then it's going to show up as green. If it's not, then it's going to be pink. The variant is light. And we have another conditional check. If it is complete, then it'll let the user know that it's complete. If not, then it's going to show as incomplete. Cool. And now we can set up the 3 buttons. And actually, let me, just so that we can see our progress, right? We didn't necessarily, we don't have, there's another component that I'm going to need to show these cards one by one. But let me just put a card on the to-do page just to show our current progress. So if I go back to the index.js for the to-do page, and I go all the way at the bottom in our container, and I put to-do card, and I save it. Oops, but I do got to pass in a to-do, right, prop. So we're going to call this to-do. And remember, we're receiving or we're fetching to-dos when during pre-render. So there is to-dos available in this array. So what we're going to do, or within this array, so what we're going to do is, let me see, cool. Or actually in this use effect, what we got to do is set to-dos to do data. Forgot to do that. So now it's going to be an array of to-dos available, and I just need one, right? So I'm going to pass it as a prop in the to-do card because that's what it's expecting. So all I got to do is use to-do equals, open up some curly braces, and I'm just going to say to-dos 0 because I just want the first to-do in this to-do array, because remember, to-dos is holding arrays of to-dos, but I just want one. So this card can know what to display. So I press save, and let me see, cannot read undefined progress. All right, so let's see what's the issue. If I just do, let's see, if I just do console log to do data, right, initially, then let me see, as you can see there's one in here, but yeah, it should work progress. If I go back to do card, props.to-do progress. Alright, props, and then to-do title seemed like it works properly. It didn't break there from what I've seen. Dot progress. Alright, cool. So let's go back. So it's saying that it's undefined progress. Alright. Set to do's. And to do's is simply here. To do. Alright, cool. Save that. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Awkward. Alright, so to do, right, is the title. It's gonna be the, see, this is the timestamp that looks crazy, right? User's gonna be like, okay, I don't know what this is. Usually there's slashes in between. You got the month, the year, and then the month, or the month, the day, then the year. But most people don't know what this is, so gonna use a parser to update that. But you can see that the logic for the badge is working as expected. So we can see that our card is working, and pretty much we're gonna create another component to make sure that our cards are in a grid format. But currently we're just gonna show one just to see our work is working. So cool. Now all we gotta do is add a couple buttons just to let the user know that they can mark it as complete, update it, and delete it, which I'll do right now. All right, so cool. Let's do that right at the bottom. So we're gonna define a couple of buttons. Button, right? And then what this is gonna be is it's gonna be a, break this down a little bit. It's gonna be a variant of light, and then the color, right? And I'm gonna do the same logic here, right? It's gonna really be based on the progress, right? So if it is marked as complete, then we want to give the user an option of undoing it. So if it is complete, then we can do, or if it's true, meaning that it's done, if the progress is true, we want to give the user the option to undo it just in case they actually didn't complete it and they want to undo it. Now if it's false, that this progress is still false but it's about to be marked as done, then we can let the button show that it is completed. If I go back, actually we didn't even put like let me see. Actually, this is supposed to be, let me see. This is actually supposed to be the text. So I kind of put it in the wrong place. And then this will be, the color will be red, and this will be blue. So if you're gonna mark it as complete, the color is gonna be blue. Now if you want to undo it, then that means the color will be red. So if I save it and I go back, it looks like that, right? And then so it's gonna be blue for if you want to mark it as complete. And actually let me just put complete. So you click on it when you complete it, and then if you want to undo it, then it'll be red, but you can press undo. And we'll mark, we'll put some other things like other properties called full width, because we want it to be full width. Margin top, if you get some medium, and then we want to put some radius on there. Make that equal to medium. Boom. Gives its own space. When I put it into grid format, this is going to be way smaller, so it's going to look better. But for now, we know that it's going to be stacked. All the buttons are going to be stacked up on top of each other. Everybody gets his own line. Cool. So let's create another button when we want to update. So button, and then a lot of these are just going to use the same props. So there's going to be a lot of, this one's going to have the same variant of lights. This is also just going to have a color, one color. And we're just going to mark that as yellow. Still want it to be full width. Still going to make this medium. And the radius is still going to be medium. And this is going to be called update, because the user will click this when they actually want to update the to-do. Then we're going to have one more button. And honestly, I'm just going to copy this because it's not really different in a huge sense. This is just going to be red, and it's still going to be full width, but this is going to be called delete. If I save that and I go back, now you see three buttons. One is for complete, one is for update, one is for delete. When I put this in a grid format, it's going to shrink this to be in like one square. There's going to be 2 squares per line. And I'm going to change this date. I'm going to parse the date using moment.js right now, really. So let's do that. So the first thing to do is to import moment from moment, because we already npm installed moment, so we're just going to take moment from there. And now we have to go where this time prop is, and we're going to have to parse it. So to do that, we'll just do moments, use that same word moment, put this prop attribute inside of it, and then we're going to use the dot format after, and then we're going to specify the format that we want to see. So open up some quotes, and now we can start defining how we want it to look like. So I want it to be month, day, and year. So to do that, it will just be 2 capital M's / 2 capital D's for days, and then 4 capital Y's to specify that it's going to be year. And to specify the specific time, H for hour, MM for minutes, and then SS for seconds. Now if I go back, you see, boom, the format is how I just exactly talked about. We have the month, the year, or the month, the day, and the year, and then there's the time afterwards. And now it's looking a little bit better. I just need to shrink this down a bit because it's way too wide. And yeah, cool. And actually I could probably just take this off the container because I think it's giving it some space that I do not want. And boom, now they're all on the same line. Cool. So we can save that. Let me format this actually, because it's all like, okay, you do a little bit of format, now everything is aligned, and save that. And now we're good to go. Now the only thing that needs to be done is to start adding some functionality for each one of these buttons. So each one of these buttons will require a different API request to mark it as complete. To mark it as complete, to update it, and to delete. So I believe these two will be pretty much the same. All we're gonna do is update it to mark progress as true or false, and this update is just gonna just update, and then delete will be its separate delete API request. So we'll work on that.